Good morning mga kapatid. Welcome back to Morning Matters. On day 11 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial, former COA Auditor Roderick Wamil testified on the OVP's 125 billion peso confidential fund spending. Wamil flagged deficiencies in the office's financial plan, accomplishment report, and liquidation documents. He said about 40 million pesos was used for medical and food assistance, while payments to informants lacked proof of successful intelligence operations. The prosecution also presented receipts bearing the names Mary Grace Piatos and Renan Piatos. Wamil, however, said his audit did not verify whether the name recipients actually existed. Now, what could the COA testimony mean for the case against Vice President Sara Duterte, and where does the trial go from here? Well, joining us this morning is lawyer and law dean, Attorney J.V. Bautista. Attorney, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Pauline,
Yes.
and Cheska, and Angela.
Yes.
And to all your viewers.
Of course.
Good morning.
Well, we have a lot to unpack this morning after
Yes.
yesterday's trial hearing. But Attorney, first of all, what stood out to you in the testimony of Attorney Roderick Wamil?
Well, what stood out was the misuse of confidential funds. It was becoming very clear. Although I was really hoping for a little more drama sana, no? Kasi accounting things are quite complicated, especially to laymen and even to lawyers. I mean, we don't exactly understand everything that's been taken up there, no? Of course, we know what a COA circular is and how it is applied and how it needs to be complied with and obeyed, no? However, these are numbers, and usually lawyers are not very good at numbers. I would have preferred somebody. I don't know. I cannot pick from the house managers right now. Perhaps, maybe yes, Lorna Kapunan would have been the best one they can get to put in there because she's a seasoned litigator. But you see, I've always maintained that in this impeachment trial, it is not really courtroom demeanor and litigation that will carry the day.
It's true.
It is really being able to communicate to the public effectively what is happening inside the impeachment court. No, I do not want to consider the space inside the Senate as a courtroom. I don't like the idea. So I don't like lawyers tangling with each other. Fortunately, yesterday, the defense counsel was not that active in objecting.
Yeah.
They were not really very, among us lawyers, it is natural for us to object.
What did you make of that, Attorney?
I am not sure what is their strategy, but I'm not convinced that Vice President Sara is being well represented by lawyers. I mean, take a look at the past, no. President Erap Estrada was represented by a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Andres Narvasa, and also one of the top litigators of the land, Estelito Mendoza. And then you have the case of Chief Justice Corona, who was represented by a retired Supreme Court Justice himself.
There's a Nervasa in her team.
Narvasa is in the team, but he's not saying anything. I was hoping that it would be somebody like Fortun, Siegfried Fortun, or Gregorio Narvasa, the son of the late Chief Justice, who would be there at the forefront. With all due respect to Attorney Powa, I have never really known him or encountered him in the litigation circles. You know, as litigators, we know each other. And we hear of reputations of each other. You know that Lorna Kapunan is a celebrity lawyer because she represents many celebrities. And we were able to tangle with each other when the names of the children of Dennis Padilla were concerned. No, they were changing the names. And Dennis Padilla came to me for legal assistance. And I tangled with Lorna Kapunan. She's a good lawyer, good litigator. She knows the law. Unfortunately, I don't think Attorney Powa is on that level. I've never known him. The first time I saw him was when he was Chief of Staff of the Vice President. Being chief of staff does not really require being a good or brilliant lawyer or a good litigator. His courtroom presence is not really that inspiring. Perhaps he can conduct press conferences very efficiently, but when it comes to the courtroom presence, you have to have the demeanor, you have to have the presence, you have to have the command. He was, pardon me, but he was objecting to answers.
Yeah.
You do not object to answers. A lawyer objects to questions. When a question is already answered, you can no longer object because the answer is there.
So, do you feel that Attorney Poa has been too lenient when it comes to the prosecution? Because yesterday, he objected to the answer, of yung ang confidential ay pagagamitan at hindi ang pinagbilhan. And then the other objection also was when Attorney Lorna Capunan was reading the names, like Andy Lim. He said that she was coloring the proceeding.
I think Attorney Poe was getting to be very diplomatic. Whenever he speaks, ang unang sabi niya, with all due respect to the adverse counsel, to the opposing counsel, with all due respect. Laging ganun. To me, I do not use that. When you litigate, you completely demolish and destroy the other party. That's how you do it.
So you want the defense to be more aggressive, Atty.
You have to be aggressive.
Because what if their strategy is that they want to be more calm? Because right now, they're already being seen as the antagonists in this trial.
That's correct. And I think that's where the prosecution is ahead of them in a way. Because from the point of view of PR or social media even, but this is not being helped by the pro-VP lawyers, like the Cayetano siblings or Robin Padilla, because they are now being cast as antagonists. Yung sila ang kontrabida dito And the successive objections, one after the other, of Binluan and the third generation Narvasa, was also turning off a lot of people watching the impeachment. Kasi nakaka-turn off naman talaga yung sobrang daming objection. But when you make good objections, and you are able to stop the questioning because the answers or the question itself would elicit inadmissible evidence, then you will score a good point. Makikita ng tao, magaling itong lawyer. As I said, just to repeat, a lawyer does not object to an answer. You only object to a question.
I want to ask you dun sa naging hearing yesterday. So having said that, do you think that the prosecution has the upper hand right now in terms of presenting evidences? And do you think that at the point yesterday, the prosecution has already established that there is really a misuse of the confidential fund?
Yes.
And can you point out which one? Kung saan doon na pinakita talaga na there's misuse?
Well, the COA state auditor, who happens also to be a lawyer, kasi he referred to a COA circular
joint
diba? 2015-01, and he was stating categorically, sabi niya, hindi compliant yung mga purchases, yung mga reimbursements, hindi compliant yan sa circular. So doon pa lang makikita mo malaking problema nitong confidential funds. Kaya lang, the prosecution should have been able to project more than that, more than the technical aspect. Number one, bakit sa dinami-dami ng mga vice president, si Sara Duterte lang ang humingi at binigyan ng confidential fund? Binay did not have confidential funds. I was with Binay for 6 years. I was one of his political consultants and I was a spokesperson for Binay for 6 years. He did not get any confidential funds.
And he did not request either.
He didn't ask. Kasi Lenny Robredo, the same, di ba? Ano ba naman ang trabaho ng Vice President?
Spare time.
Maghihintay ka lang. Spare time, Maghihintay ka lang something happens to the President. Di ba? What does... theoretically, she's in the executive department. But she doesn't do anything as Vice President.
Ba't kasi binigyan? The budget, the Congress, diba, approved the budget.
Palagay ko, kasi remember, she was still in good terms with BBM at that time. And probably BBM said, sige, may pondo dito, kunin mo. Gawin natin confidential
Kasi
funds. But
dahil ba
here's
hindi
the
siya
thing.
pinagbigyan to be the
Oo.
DND secretary?
Kaya, oo, kasi hindi niya nakuha. But here's the thing, So sinabi ni State Auditor Wamil, this is the first time na nag-audit siya ng Vice President because it's not been done before. Hindi ginagawa nung past Vice President yan, ni Binay or ni Robredo. Ito pa lang. Now, how much was the confidential fund of the Vice President? 500 million. Kalahating bilyon agad. Pagkatapos, hindi pa nagkasya doon, humingi pa ng confidential fund for the DepEd in the tune of 112.5 million. Ano? So, 612.5 total yan sabi rin ni Wamil, he has never encountered confidential funds for the DepEd. Remember that the DepEd has the largest budget of all departments by virtue of constitutional mandate.
Yes.
Sabi ng Constitution the Department of Education will always have the biggest budget. Bakit hingi ka pa ng confidential fund? Tapos ang ginagamit yung confidential fund? Chairs, tables. Hindi naman po pwede yun
Safe house.
Hindi po pwede yun, safe house. Kasi, sabi ng COA, pag humingi ka ng confidential fund, kailangan mag-submit ka ng physical and financial plan.
PFP.
You have to be careful with public funds You cannot just do away with it. Regular disbursement of public funds, kailangan meron kang procurement Mahigpit yan. No? Every purchase and every contract, supplies, etc. should go through bidding processes, no? With a few exceptions, pagka mga emergency. Pero kailangan niya mag-bidding, dadaan yan sa procurement proceedings, no? Procedure. Dito sa confidential fund, walang ganon. Walang ganon. Kaya, the circular must be very, very strict about the use of confidential fund. Kasi kayang-kaya gamitin But you know what what is going on in my mind? Itong si Sara Duterte, kasi, remember, mayor yan sa Davao Di ba? And she was mayor when her father was president. And a mayor can ask for confidential funds. Hindi ganyan kalaking 600 million, Millions din. And I think that as mayor of Davao, siyempre, siga sila ron, Duterte sila, they just take the confidential funds. No questions asked. Wala nang audit yan. Kinukuha na lang yan. In the crudest way I can put it, binubulsa. No? They were pocketing the money. Ngayon, itong si Vice President Sara Duterte, apparently to me, nasanay sa Davao 6 years. Kuha lang ng pera, confidential fund. Nobody asks. Di ba? O ngayon, naging Vice President. It happens. Kakampi niya yung presidente.
Okay lang.
And then she learned, meron pala ditong ganitong kalaki. O sige, kunin mo na. Okay lang. So kinuha niya. Ang problema, she did not spend it properly naman. Kasi siguro yung ugali niya sa Davao na kinukuha lang niya yung pera and pocketing it, I think it permeated up to the office of the Vice President and the DepEd. That is what happened. Kasi nobody could account for the funds Saan pumunta yung 612.5 million na yan? Nobody knows. Di ba? Yung COA, ang daming flinag. Sinabi lang, hindi pwede yan for desk. Hindi pwede yan for chairs. Bawal yan Hindi pwede yan for reimbursement. Bawal yun No, bawal yan under the circle. Kaya, ang kaya lang sabihin siyempre ng COA, it's non-compliant. No, these are technical terms. That was why I was stating in the beginning, I wished that the prosecution could have been more graphic and a bit, dramatic lang na konti, to be able to project that hundreds of millions of money, people's money, are being taken and pocketed by this official who is now under impeachment. Yun ang kailangan na ipresente That is what, sabagay, in fairness to them, hindi pa naman tapos.
Yes.
No?
Bilang isang lawyer po ba? Kasi
Yes.
meron ako that caught my attention Sabi po nila, there's an important provision in the COA DBM Joint Circular 2015. And it says yung 8.1 doon, when a public official or an accountable official fails to liquidate for public funds, meron presumption of guilt.
Yes.
So kailangan po ba, sino ang kailangan magpatunay? Ang prosecution na kailangan po ba nilang patunayan na may ibang pinuntahan yung pera or okay na lang na mapakita sa tao na may misuse talaga? or the defense na kailangan nilang patunayan na meron talaga mga mere gris piatos under a actual person?
The position kasi of the defense has always been, kasi ang approach nila rito parang criminal prosecution, no? Ang sabi nila, kasi pag criminal case yan,
all elements.
merong presumption of innocence, di ba? So, you don't even need to present evidence if the prosecution cannot present sufficient evidence to convict. Ganyan ang principle ng criminal law.
Yeah.
Of course, this is not criminal law. This is not a criminal trial. This is a sui generis trial of impeachment, a class of its own. Ang kailangan lang dito, clear and convincing evidence. As to your question, of course, the onus, yung responsibility niyan lies with the prosecution. They need to prove. Kasi sila nag-allege. Sila nagsabi na may misuse. Di ba? I think the word misuse here is a little bit, tame, benign. It's not misuse to me, ha?
Oh, what should it be, Attorney?
It's pocketing. It's plunder. This is plunder, plain and simple. To me, ha? And I think the prosecution should be able to develop a case na hindi lang ito misuse, misappropriation, ganyan. Hindi lang ganyan yan. This is stealing public money, public coffers. Tama naman yung nila. Culpable violation of the Constitution. Yan ang Article 1, graft and corruption and betrayal of public trust. Of course, these are broad terms na pwede mo naman i-shoot dyan yan. Kasi ito, graft and corruption ito. Because it goes into the crime of plunder already. And plunder, remember, is only 50 million. This is 612.5 million. Where did that money go? Di ba?
So as early as now, Attorney, has the prosecution already established that the misuse of confidential funds and that this is an impeachable offense? Do you think they will be able to secure a conviction for this article?
Not yet at this stage, no, not yet. I think the evidence for and the proof for Article 1 is only beginning to develop.
Okay.
They're doing a good thing. Good enough yan, no? Ang first witness nila was presented last week. Remember, it was Congressman
Constantino.
Joel Chua who presented. I think he did a pretty good job.
Former land bank managers.
Oo, yung land bank manager. Kaya lang yun, mga check-check lang naman yun. These are technical matters that even the defense naman can stipulate. When you stipulate, you both agree to a fact which you no longer need to prove in court. Kasi stipulated na Nagkasundo na kayo. And so, the court will take notice of that na ito, admitted fact na to. Hindi na kailangan i-prove. I think yesterday, may mga ganon, except that meron yatang hindi in-stipulate si Atty. Poa when it came to the matter of the 800 plus documents. Ayaw
yung
niya.
mga ARs.
Sabi naman ni Kapunan, teka muna common yan pati kayo nga. Sa inyo nang galing yan Because these are acknowledgement receipts.
Yes.
Kayong kayo nagbigay niyan sa COA as some form of liquidation documents. Kaya lang sabi nila, hindi namin sigurado kasi yung chain of custody. So pinagbibintangan nila yung COA na nasingitan yan. Kasi when you say chain of custody, sa drugs yan Sa drugs yan. Kasi mahigpit sa drugs kailangan you go through a chain of custody. Each and every, every person who handles the drugs, kailangan recorded. Dito, ang sinasabi ni Poa, that's why I said, I'm not really impressed
Convinced,
with this lead defense.
Yeah.
He happens to be the lead defense. Kung ang lead defense yan, mabuti pa kung si Sigfrid Fortuna lang He was my classmate in the College of Law of UP. Kaya I have a higher regard to him and of course, Atty. Narvaez.
UP Law din naman si Atty. Poe.
I'm sorry?
UP Law rin ata si Atty. Poe.
Is that so?
I think, yes,
Well,
Atty.
he should start acting more like a UP
my
lawyer. I'm sorry.
So, speaking of the defense, last week, Violeta Constantino and Ninita Composano basically established that the funds were withdrawn from
Yes.
their respective land bank branches.
Yes.
The defense did not cross-examine, they didn't deny that the funds were withdrawn. And then yesterday, we heard Attorney Wamil basically testify to irregularities
Yes.
and discrepancies.
Yes.
So where do you see the defense going? Will they cross this time? Where should they focus on if and when they do their cross-examination?
It's a disaster for the defense not to conduct the cross-examination. They cannot do without a cross examination. They need to conduct one. Ano? Kasi ang problema lang dito kasi yung procedure ng impeachment court eh. I was hoping that there was talk of varying the procedure. Kasi ang gusto ngayon nung impeachment court through Chis Escudero, kaya medyo critical ako kay Chis eh. I-present muna yung 4 na articles, di ba?
Dapat
And then
alternate.
tsaka mag-defend. Oo. So okay lang naman, ganun eh. They did not change it. Mas maganda sana article, magko-cross yan, ano? And then evidence for the defense. Para mag-join na yung issues, para maintindihan na ng tao. Eh hindi, hihintay yung matapos lahat eh. Kaya lang, yung going back to Cheska's question about the necessity for conducting a cross-examination, if they don't conduct a cross-examination, it's their own doom. Kasi, I think after the completion of the prosecution evidence, insofar as the confidential funds are concerned, makikita na yung full picture eh. And if you do not question that, or if you do not try to demolish the presentation of the prosecution, it's their own lookout. Ano yan? It will lead to conviction. Right now, to me, Article 4 has been proven. Wala nang question yun eh. Kasi, ang linaw eh. It's on television.
Okay,
It's public knowledge. Everybody saw it. Now, the only question is whether, in the mind of the impeachment court and of the public, of the viewing public, that would be enough to get the Vice President out of office. To me, it's more than sufficient, yung Article 4. Ito, you're now going into funds. Ang problema lang kasi dito, you're taking this up in an institution where most of the members are so used to getting commissions. Di ba? Mga corrupt din yung mga congressman eh, tsaka yung mga senador eh.
Ano ba sabihin mo? Walang tulak kabigi.
Oo eh, they get kickbacks eh from their projects. Kaya lang sila, syempre, kasi alam mo yung mga projects ng mga congressman tsaka mga senador. Ang binabayaran dyan ng gobyerno, yung kontratista. Okay? Hindi naman pumupunta yan doon sa public official eh. Babayaran yung kontratista. Yung kontratista, papartihan yung congressman o senador. In some instances, the only instance na sila ang tumatanggap pag sila na yung kontratista. Ang dami ng congressman na kontratista, di ba? They're congressmen and kontratista.
Attorney, I want to cut you there, but I
Yeah.
want to ask you about the names that we've heard yesterday, di ba, during the
Ay, mga
trial.
Mary Grace Piatos.
Mary Grace Piatos, you have Andy Lim,
Yes.
you have Alejandro
Atty.
Piquet, Cisfronio Balsac, di ba, yung mga rami. And you cannot fault the people na natatawa sila kasi ganon.
Ridiculous names.
O yun.
Ridiculous
So sabi niyo
names.
po kanina, meron kayong nakausap na former intelligence officer.
Oh yeah, high ranking.
Oo, so tama ba na ganun yung mga pangalan?
Sa akin, iniisip ko nga eh, I'm imagining, when they were accomplishing this, itong kanilang yung mga liquidation documents na yan, na they're actually engaging in some kind of mockery of the public system eh, and the people, no? Na, sige, pangalanan natin to, Mary Grace Piatos. Yung ganun. They could have resorted to more common names, more usual names, if
Juan
these
de la
are in
Cruz.
fact aliases, ano? Bakit naman ganun? Parang
Baka kumakain sila ng
nire-ridicule nila
Piatos,
tayo. Parang,
I think, Attorney, kasi kanina, di ba you mentioned you allege that the Vice President, back when she was still Mayor of Davao,
Yes.
was so used already to pocketing quote-unquote confidential funds. Baka
Yes.
trickle down na rin. Yung ganong klaseng behavior na sanay na sila. Sige, lagay na lang tayo ng ganitong laughable na pangalan. Di ba?
I
ng
agree.
Mary Grace Piatos.
I agree. Now, insofar as what you asked, Angela, no, about intelligence officers, I was able to talk to a high-ranking former intelligence officer who eventually became chief of staff of the armed forces. He is my friend.
Sino ba yan?
He told me.
Google na natin.
That's the secret.
Sulat mo
That's
nga
the
dito.
secret. He told me ganito eh. It's all right to use aliases
Yeah.
when you use intelligence or confidential funds. After all, sometimes you really do use informers. And the informers will not give their real names. they will put somebody else's name. But the question here is are these really aliases? Because there's supposed to be a list daw naman where you can counter-check. But it's not with COA. Where you can counter-check aliases, registered Kailangan naman nakarehistro yan I just don't know exactly where you can find that list, no? My friend who used to be with the intelligence service would know. The problem is if these people like Mary Grace Piatos is a completely fictitious person. Di ba? It doesn't matter whether there is somebody whose name is Mary Grace Piatos, because for all you know, Maria Makiling, who is a real person, would be hired as an informer and use Mary Grace Piatos as an alias. Legitimate yan. Di ba? But if there is no one, no real person, no natural person, who actually use the money, then there's a problem there. Kasi fictitious yan. Meaning they're just getting all the money and nobody's getting it except the Vice President. Kasi siya yung may and siya yung may control niyan And this is where the suggestion of Senator Judge Ping Lacson comes into play. Kasi sabi niya, better if they will get to the prosecution, a former intelligence officer who can explain this better. Yung mga intelligence funds. I think that's a good suggestion. They should go towards that direction. Kasi, kailangan ng konting shock value
what if the defense suddenly, pagdating nung time nila 2% evidence, brings up
which is at the end, At the end.
These people na, claiming, I am Juan de la Cruz, I am
Mary Grace
Andy Lim.
Okay, they will be in big trouble. Kasi number one, I don't know if there will be anyone that they can recruit in the public who has, all that courage and bravado to go there and sit there and claim that she is Mary Grace Piatos. I think that's very unlikely. Number two, even if she does, hindi naman tama yung mga nire-reimburse niya Hindi tama yung mga yung mga nire-receive niya Nire-receive niya for medicines. Bakit for medicines? Dapat yung medicine, pinoprocure yan Di ba? How do you know that these are the best medicines that confidential funds should be used for? So, mali talaga. Maling-mali yan. So, even if they do, I'm anticipating, yes, that maybe they will say aliases lang naman yan So, don't pay too much attention to that. However, if they try to prove people who they will allege to be utilizing these names as aliases, maloloko yung kaso nila. Baka sumabog sa mukha nila yan.
Well, Attorney, so many irregularities were flagged already, and as you mentioned earlier, it's still early in the stage. So ano po ba yung missing link na hinahanap nyo personally? What do you want to see? You said you want to see more drama. But what is the missing link that the prosecution needs to establish to prove that there was misuse of confidential funds? Because yesterday, sinabi na po ni Attorney Wamil that the Vice President herself signed these documents. Diba? Kinonfirm niya. Signature yan ng Vice President. Isn't that enough? Hindi pa ba smoking gun yun?
The smoke is too little. Kasi parang implications lang yan no? Na may mga irregularities. Technical yan no? I'm looking for something more, more graphic, like somebody who can prove that this money were taken by the Vice President herself. Kaya, the testimony of itong si Madriaga somehow assumes some significance Kasi sinabi niya doon sa kanya mga salaysay, na binibigyan siya ng pera galing confidential funds na i-deliver niya sa mga supporters ni Vice President. So ginagamit ni Vice President, ibig sabihin, di ba? Ginagamit na. Kinukuha yung confidential funds, binibigay sa isang tao niya para ipamigay doon sa mga tauhan niyang iba pa. Okay? So that's being utilized not for the purpose of the confidential funds, but for other personal purposes. It's just like the money being pocketed by the Vice President. I hope they can be able to connect that, create that nexus and make the connection. Because if they are able to successfully do that, wala na. In the bag na to. Makukonvict ang Vice President.
Well, in terms of all the articles of impeachment, there was actually a recent survey by Okta. I think this just came out on Monday. It showed that bribery is the most serious impeachment charge against the VP at 43% nationwide. And then the misuse of confidential funds only came in second at 28%. So this is according to the survey. Can I just get your thoughts on that? Because you would think that pera natin yan eh.
Well, Cheska, I'm not a big believer on surveys naman eh. Minsan nagkakamali rin sila eh. Masyadong konti naman yung tinatanong eh. The three of you, have you ever been surveyed?
Not
Anyone of you?
No.
I've been
In my
around. I've been
existence.
around for a long time. Not once have I been asked in a survey. So which leads me to ask, sino ba talaga mga tinatanong nila? Di ba? Now, meron namang tinatawag na, okay, reputable yan, they are able to predict, no? But when it comes to this, kasi preference yan eh, this is a very subjective thing. I don't know how the question is phrased, so I don't know how the answer is given. And they just try to project it the way they see it. Insofar as I'm concerned, I don't think bribery is the strongest. I think it was the threat to the president and the money that's being stolen. Those are the really serious and grave offenses.
Well, sabay-sabay tayo later manood.
All right, and on that note, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us as always. Very great discussion there.
Thank you so much.
Entertaining
My
si,
pleasure. Thank you so
Attorney
much.
JV. All right, thank you very much. That was lawyer and law dean attorney JV Bautista.